What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week of the X Podcast. I got my boys here.
Yes.
How you doing?
What's up?
Pastor Russ.
Yes, sir.
Tim. Can I call you Tim and Russ
Yes,
today?
please.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I would
in this
prefer
conversation.
Bishop Russ.
I'm
Yeah.
going to get in trouble. Reverend.
Yes.
Reverend.
Don't call me Reverend.
As the newspaper
I do not
states.
enjoy that title.
Your newspaper name.
No.
Reverend Tim.
More.
Well, it's good to be with
Just
you,
call me
Rev.
Moore. I want to go with last name. You want to go last name?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Mr. Moore.
Do you feel,
Ah, crap,
Mr. Moore,
that's
Mr.
gonna be
Moore.
a
do you
hard
feel
for
special
me.
now that you share my name?
No. I had it first.
Okay.
Hey, guys, I'm excited about today.
Yeah.
I am too.
Yeah. Lots of really cool reaction from last week. Our first ever episode. So whether you watch us on YouTube or on Facebook Live, as we are right now, or maybe you've found us on a podcast platform, we're so glad that you're with us here today. I'm going to look in the camera so I can see you, but whoever you are, wherever you're watching, whether you're at work, on your lunch break, or whatever, we are so glad that you're here. Today is going to be a really great topic. We got a message in from somebody who was listening.
How did we get it in?
Through text message, but if you have something that you want to add today to the conversation, or maybe you just disagree with what we're saying, or you think we're crazy, or you have an idea for a podcast in the future, we have an email. Please send it in to podcast@thex.church.
Yeah.
And we would love to maybe even read it on air. So this one's from Mr. Greg. And Greg, thanks for writing us in, dude. We're glad you enjoyed it. He said specifically that I'm his favorite
That's
person
not what he
on the
said. I don't think that's what he said.
No, I must have read
I
it.
really don't think that's what he said.
It's really cool. We mentioned last week a little bit about the personality typing tool, the
Yeah.
Enneagram. And he wrote this in. He said, I've been super interested in the Enneagram recently. And so it's interesting to hear your numbers. I also, being an 8, which is the best number on the Enneagram, in my opinion, never thought of my desire to debate or challenge as a way that I feel satisfaction. I look forward to you guys having conversations about real topics to allow it to go deeper. And it's just how much of our personalities or Enneagrams are determined from life experience versus what you're born with. I mean, just lots of really great questions
Nature
in his
versus
text.
nurture.
So really that provoked a conversation between us about really just the importance of doing work on yourself and doing work on your personality, the importance of personal growth in a way, in a world that is so chaotic everywhere else, and we want to change everybody else's behavior. Why is it important to look at ourselves first? So I don't know who wants to riff on that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people that I feel like I have a really passionate belief in the capacity that's inside of people. And so first off, just even before it comes to how do we love people, relate to people, I think even just for self-work, I think there's no way you can tap into the potential inside of you until you understand what's inside of you.
Right.
And I know, like, for me, even apart from self-discovery as far as, like, okay, how do I heal from wounds? How do I become better as a person? Understanding how I'm wired. We did this little personality test last night at one of our growth track things here at the church. It's a lot more simple. But, one of the things we talk about is the frustration of being in the wrong lane or being used for the wrong purpose. And we use this kind of silly analogy of, can you imagine a violin in the hands of a baseball player? If you could imagine what a violin would feel like, maybe a stupid analogy. But everybody, when they understand themselves and how they're wired, I think in interpersonal relationships, in career, in every way, can step into something that's a whole lot more fulfilling, a whole lot less frustrating. And I think understanding yourself is one of the best ways to personal health and growth and awareness. And then, you cannot understand yourself and then try to understand others, and your relationships not improve.
That's good.
So,
What about you?
I was just thinking about that question, and I wonder if every different type of the Enneagram sees that same question differently.
Was that a 3 answer?
No, it wasn't. Because for me, a 3 answer was like, okay, so how can I leverage this tool so that I can get further in my relationships with other people?
Absolutely.
Versus less introspective of, I need to look at me, which was, I think, the question, that you talked about. And I think, it's interesting. It reminds me of something Ian Cron said, one of the co-writers of that book that we talked about. talked about a study that was done in Cornell University. So it just speaks to the importance of it. Let me say about that study. I think personally what I've gotten from it is that it helps me understand motivations, core motivations, and I think I'm able to see things that I don't like. And I think before it was a little bit, this is who I am, versus kind of going, yeah, that's not good. Like it kind of points that out. It puts language to that's not a good way to think. Right. You know what I mean? So I think that's been helpful versus other types. I think self-awareness, self-growth helps in all our other areas.
Yeah.
When I think about the interpersonal relationships, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, which as a very 3 thing of me is so that you can get ahead, so that you can accomplish what you need to accomplish. That's the way I see it, rather than looking at myself.
Yeah.
But I'll say real quick that just this study, he talked about a study was done by Cornell University in the business department where they studied, I can't remember, it was hundreds or whatever, CEOs, very successful CEOs. What is the one common trait that all of them seem to have that, just so you can discover, like, this is what leads to success. Yeah. And they said it was not what you thought. The number one quality they all had was self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that's an eye-opening thing.
Haven't we all been around a leader that's not self-aware?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if there's anything more frustrating.
And haven't we all been that leader?
Right.
Let's also say that.
I've never been self-aware.
I know you haven't been.
Or however you put it. I don't know. We've all experienced what it's like to be around somebody who has no awareness of how they come across and how they can hurt other people, and I've done that. And I think the other thing to bring up, too, why it's so important that we dive into this, I get a little confused sometimes because I think generally people in society today focus too much on themselves. I don't know if narcissistic is the right term or not. Maybe that's too powerful, but we're obsessed with self. Right. I mean, just obsessed. And I get caught up in it too. Whatever it is, social media, however you want to look at it, that we are obsessed with self, it seems. But why is it important at the same time to do your most work on the inside of you?
Yeah.
And there's something super spiritual about it. There's something super, you find it manifests itself a lot physically in work environments, in your marriage, in your relationships, in your family, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we all realize, I think, at some point that the way that I can't just go on autopilot anymore. Autopilot for me doesn't work. Autopilot has hurt people.
Yeah. I think, it's so easy on one extreme to become so introspective, where you just stare at your own belly button for 10 years and you're just so self-focused. And so that's definitely not a ditch we want to fall in. But I think what you said is so true, because I think when you look at it this way, that the most loving thing that I can do for the people around me, the people in my family, the people I lead, is to walk into every room as a whole and full person. Because I'm not an island. So everybody I come in contact with will be affected for the negative. It's like that whole analogy of water, full cup of water. What spills out of you when people bump into you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the work that I do on the inside to either be whole, healthy, full, or to just be on autopilot and destructive, it's going to affect everybody around me. So perhaps the most loving thing I can do is say, God, whatever you believe, what needs to change on the inside of me to become a more integrated, aware person?
That's good.
It hurts, though, sometimes.
Oh,
yeah, it does.
Why does it hurt so bad?
Yeah. Well, for a 3, it hits the ego, because I'm like, oh man.
We should go through the types.
Yeah.
Because I wonder how it would hit all of us a little bit differently.
There's a lot of different personality typing systems. So if you work in an organizational environment, or if you've read any sort of literature, you know that there's DISC, there's the color test, there's Myers-Briggs. What am I missing? There's so many of these assessments out there. About, what do you say, 2 or 3 years ago, here in our ministry offices, whatever, we kind of introduced, I think a couple of us read a book that had come out, and it talked about this, what was seemingly new to us, but has been around for a long time, was the tool of the Enneagram. And you kind of see it in almost,
I thought it was witchcraft at first.
Some people think it's witchcraft. Some people...
It's so accurate that sometimes it's like...
Well, he thought it was a pentagram, and he forbid us from talking about it for a few weeks.
No, I didn't, but I did say it looked
about
I did say it looks like a pentagram.
Did it really?
Huh? It was a joke, but yeah.
Some people, I think that this is true, and I don't think it's bad. I think that a lot of people are super skeptical about personality tests. Well, I think,
typepasting
we hate to be
and
labeled.
labeled,
Yeah.
categorized. And,
You give certain people who are unhealthy the ability to stereotype you and to
yeah.
predict all your
Oh, yeah.
actions,
Be a
and they
bad
will,
weapon.
and they'll
Abuse it.
They'll abuse it, and they'll corner you. And I've talked to so many people who are so hesitant to dive into something like this that can be so helpful because they don't want to be labeled or cornered or stereotyped.
Yeah.
Would this help? So we, again, we do a very rudimentary, simple personality test in one of our growth tracks, and we give a couple phrases at the beginning. We say, hey, this is a snapshot, not a label.
yeah.
And this is an explanation, not an excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think you're so right. It can be either a powerful tool or a dangerous weapon.
Yep. So the Enneagram it kind of permeated through our culture a couple of years ago. It's taken us years to, I think, really understand it and appreciate it, and to see. I think we've made some mistakes with it and misused it even as we navigate through healthy and unhealthy seasons as people. Or as you have confrontations with people, I think it's easy to go, oh, well, you're just being a 3, you're just being an 8, But what it really is it's 9 different types, so types 1 through 9, that really provide language and a snapshot, and I've heard somebody say a low resolution picture for
like
the
that.
essence of who you are.
Yeah, I like that.
And so almost
good.
understanding that we all have to find a way to survive in the world. And so we get in this one box that works for us, and we kind of navigate life that way. So whether it's the way you were born or whether it's the way you were raised or nurtured, there's lots of discussion on how you get your type. But whatever it looks like, what trauma you experienced, anything. As a child, we all navigate the world in a certain way. And to understand that just because something is normal for you doesn't mean your normal is my normal.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean our normal is the people watching and listening, their normal. And so how can we identify the box that we're in and get out of it?
Yeah.
And so that's what the Enneagram is. It's a way to find almost the essence of who you are. And I think, and I just think too, just to add, I think that's one thing that's super important. And that we all have this desire as humans to go, how was I created?
Yeah.
Like, what was I created for?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to just, like, the world says this is wrong about me, but it feels so natural,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how to navigate those things. So how did you guys maybe just personally, let's talk about the process of finding your type. And can you talk about how you knew or what you read? Or you guys are both 3s, so it might be similar, it might be different.
For me, it was a combination of taking some tests, but also reading a book. And
Which book are you talking about? Just
I
for
did the
fresh
Road Back to
listeners.
You by Enneagram, not Sacred. What was the other one? That was the other book we had
Yeah.
floating around for a
Yeah,
while. I can't
Sacred
remember.
Enneagram.
Sacred Enneagram.
Yeah. So
I like the Road Back to You.
We'll put that in the chat. And
Yeah.
Put it in the show notes and stuff.
By Ian Cron. That book helped because it just goes through each type. It asks a lot of questions. I like the descriptors before each chapter on each type. Like honestly, I would read.
Yeah.
There was a couple of them that I read through and I go, yeah, I'm kind of like that sometimes. I'm kind of like this. Reading through the descriptors, I ended up having to go down and go like, okay, 3, a 7. I would read through and go, is this one true of me? Is this one true of me? And then the 3s were the highest. Then I took a test after that, and it came back 3. So that's kind of how I kind of landed in 3. But then I think part of it is that, in all of them, I get to the part where it talks about the negatives of it, and I just immediately wanted to reject the negatives of every single one. That's not me. That's not me.
Yep.
So I got 3. No, I don't think that's why. I think that's why I'm floating around
Yeah.
trying to figure out what my number was so much.
Yeah.
I didn't want to accept or embrace the fact that my primary motivation. Like, it was hard for me because I didn't quite understand. It took a while to tap into, because the biggest key is discovering your motivation. It's not the attributes, because I feel like personalities get in the way, and and then your job gets in the way, and how long you've been alive gets in the way. Your trauma can get in the way of all of that. So I feel like you have to get down to the motivation. What's the motivation? Yeah. The motivation for a 3 is they're driven. They're also very image conscious. And so I had to kind of well, I don't think I'm image conscious. I'm always like, yeah, but you have 100 shirts hanging in your closet. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Okay, we're talking about our soul here, right? And so because in one sense I don't care what people think about me, or so I think, And then, but as I would peel back layers, and that for me, I had to do that. I had to peel back layers and go, okay, wait, where does this really show through this core motivation? And a lot for me is a drive to succeed, and is how people see me in that. And it's like, and failing is like the biggest. Like for a 3, like to fail is almost the end of everything. Yeah. So I had to how do I avoid failure at all costs? Yeah. But then the question though, it's not just avoid failure, it's why.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm having to go back in layers and go, okay, what's my motivation for avoiding failure? Yeah. Is it because I'm afraid of failing? Or is it because of how I think everybody's going to think of me and see me if I fail? Right. And that's when you start getting into those, you start going, oh, you know what I mean? It's a self-awareness journey, and it was for me.
I think it's important for people to know too. Like this tool, it's not meant to just be like a meme that you share on Instagram, right? It's not meant to just be, oh well, we've all maybe seen those things shared on Facebook or whatever. Here's the fall colors for an Enneagram 4. You know, it's like
that can be very
there you get into stereotyping and not typing,
right?
Yeah. And I think. If you really want to use this to its full potential, I mean, your journey was really cool to see, because I remember, I was all up in your business, like, I wanted to find out what you were, you know?
Yeah. What's your number? Have you read the book?
Hard. And here's what's cool about the Enneagram is that I can't tell you what you are because it comes from the inside.
Right.
And so you have to do the work. Yeah. And so to see you navigate, a lot of people are like, I took this test and it said I was this, that, you know?
Yeah.
But what's cool is that it took you like weeks to figure it out.
Oh, yeah. It was.
And the conversations that you had with, myself and a lot of us got to have with each other as we're all figuring out our types together.
Right.
That's some of the most healthy things I think we can do as we talk with other people. So I'd encourage you, if you do this, don't do it alone. Yeah. Do it with your family. Do it with your coworkers.
We do. Our whole family's done it.
Yes.
Our whole family's read different chapters on it. Helpful. We like to talk about it.
At the end, will you drop links and give some more information? I know we talked about the name of the book last time. It's by Ian Cron and Suzanne Stabile. They co-wrote it. But Army and Tucker, shout out to Tucker. I told him I'd shout him out last weekend, and he didn't get one. So Tucker's manning our socials right now. So Tucker, if you can drop the book, and we'll put it in the show notes and everything. So everything we talk about. I resonate so much with what you said about the whole thought of what people think about you, because that's one of the layers that took me a while to peel back to. I think I'm still peeling back, because there's very much a side of me that's like, no, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. There's very much that confident side I think of 3s. Then there's that other side of me at times I'm like really bothered by why I care so much in that moment of how somebody perceives me. And then their very 3 side of me is like, I'm bothered by the fact that I'm bothered of why I care what that person thinks of me.
Right. Yeah.
But, I shared last week when I read it, it was a prime time in my life for self-discovery. I'd kind of hit a wall just personally and was doing some self-reflection. And I think I was creating new patterns in my life that I thought were healthier for rest. And so it was a time to really have some self-discovery. And I'd taken the test. It said I was a 3. But then I took the book. This is the part you really resonate with, is I wept when I read my chapter.
What do you mean?
This is very much like Tim. I actually walked in this morning and he was weeping by this table, and I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I'm just searching my soul."
I didn't cry, but thank you. Yeah, I know you want me to.
He tries to cry and dust.
He tries to cry and he starts sneezing. So, but no, for me, a part of it was I forgot about it. They have like this list at the beginning of the chapter that's almost tongue in cheek, but some of it I was like, "Oh my gosh, people have told me that." One of the things for 3s I remember from like 3 years ago was it says you could sell a MacBook to Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I actually think I could sell a MacBook to Bill Gates. So and it goes through all that, but then it goes into like the essence. I love it because it's he lays it out very organized, but it's also anecdotal. So he talks about people in his life that are like that. And then he goes into the essence of who you are, the motivation, the fears. And one of the things I was just thinking about this morning, you probably remember him. I don't remember him. Pastor Kevin's like the resident Enneagram scholar. But at the end of each chapter, he talks about what that number needs to hear.
Yeah.
And so that was part of it too, because
what do I need to hear?
So
I can't remember. Can you remind me?
And you may even know better for my number, but I think a 3 needs to know that they're loved no matter their performance.
Yes.
And for me, I like a year or 2 before that had read this book by Donald Miller called Scary Close. It's probably a book for 3s, but for everybody, a great book on letting down your guard to be truly vulnerable and to actually have intimacy in your relationships. And Donald Miller, he got married late in life. He talked about some of the things that he went through. And he had this phrase, and I think it was in the beginning of the book, where he talked about he spent his whole life feeling like he had to get people to clap for him. And we could go psychoanalytical. There's even theories in college universities right now about explaining things instead of Freudian terms about from the fall. This kind of Judeo-Christian belief that we once had glory, but there's this fall, and now it's missing. So all of us are trying to get people to clap for us. But I feel like that's really sharp for a 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so I think the curse of a 3 sometimes, an unhealthy 3, is you're only as significant as your last good performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but I read this
Every
thing by
Sunday.
Donald Miller where he said, I feel like I'm trying to get people to
stressful.
clap for me. But then going into the relational piece, he goes, but I feel like I've always been waiting for that person who will clap for me, but then love me enough to pull me off the stage and look at all my scars and love me for me.
Oh, wow.
And I remember reading that. I was like, that's me. And I read that to Pastor Tim one time. He wept for an hour.
I don't see why that means so much to you.
See, I don't.
You just cry so much. Let's move on. I think it's
Let's
helpful
move on.
to hear.
We need to hit some of the types.
That's what I
because
want to go
think
through all the
people-
types.
Let's not just talk about 3s all the time.
Yeah.
'cause we
As
know they're
much
the
as
best
the
number,
3s
but-
would love us to.
Well, I know, and then I
I'm
was
just kidding.
sorry.
You're talking
last
about
part,
3s again.
I was really confused because then I read through the weaknesses and I didn't share any of those weaknesses.
I understand. I
So
understand what
just-
you're saying.
Listen,
I'm with you. Let's talk about them all.
So there's 9 types, and again, these 2 are 3s. What I identify as 3s. I'm an 8. Now, maybe you've heard about the wings of an Enneagram and where you go in health and unhealth and
Learn that.
subtypes and all those things. And listen, this is a really deep well, which is partly why it's so helpful.
Yeah.
But for the sake of today, we're just going to talk about the types and maybe the things, how they look in health and unhealth, and maybe how they make decisions and some things like that. So, type 1. We've got the improver or the perfectionist. And so, do you guys know any type 1s?
I'm not a 1. What are you clearing your throat at me
Do
for?
you know any ones?
Yes,
Why
I
don't you share
know
with the
1.
people?
I know lots of 1s.
Can we
I
share?
work with 1s. I
Who?
live with 1, maybe. Huh? Trey, Pastor Trey. He's a 1.
Jenny's a 1.
Jenny,
Your
I
wife
still
is
question
a
that, but
1.
I don't know. We think she's a 9
Lori's a
wing
1?
1. Yeah, she's either a 9 wing 1 or a 1 wing 9.
Tell us about the 1s from what you
Okay, so 1s have a really high, I think, typically ethical standard. So they really believe in like what is morally right. This is where for the longest time, I probably typecast her more. Honey, you're a 1, you're a 1, you're a 1. Then after a while, we kind of started going, I think you might be a 9 because she shares different attributes of both. But 1s they have a big. Here's interesting. They have a huge inner critic voice.
Yeah.
That's probably their greatest struggle. Is like everything they do, they feel like. And that's where my wife doesn't really have that. That's where it's kind of like she's a little bit more of a 9. But 1s are very particular. They like things. They're sometimes almost to the point where I think you could get OCD.
Yeah.
About how everything is kind of put together, very organized. 1s usually are great organizers. My wife, that's where we kind of go. She either has a wing 1.
Details.
She's very organized.
You want a 1 to be your surgeon.
You do, right? And like I said, they're perfectionists, yes, but I think even more than that, like they want to improve everything around them, including themselves.
Yes.
But the biggest thing, like I used to think my wife might be a 1, is that the whole she is so. If it is wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah. Black and white.
They're so black and
yeah.
white. I am very much, I don't know if it's a 3 thing or it's just a Tim thing. I am very much like, okay, rules were made to be bent. I'm not going to break bad ones, but they were made to be bent a lot. You know what I mean? Like let's ask forgiveness, not permission.
Right.
She's going to be like, why would we even ask?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what it says. Well, yeah, I know, but a lot of times they just say that, and then they really, you know what I mean? And so I don't know if she's a true 1 or a 9 with a wing 1, but that's where I see that 1 come out of her, very much so.
Yeah, but very high on the morality standard. I mean, almost like heroic morally.
And if it's not right, just ethically right, you shouldn't do it.
Well, I mean,
Decision making, like if
have
you
you ever
make a
been
decision-
around those people who are just good? You're like, man, you
I
are
married
just,
one.
You are just a good person. The essence of who you are is just really good.
I know.
And like you said, just to reiterate, the things about the 1 that I think are.
I don't think I've ever seen.
And they tend to have a
sin.
spirit of excellence about
Yes.
them. Not even just good
Yes.
morally, but
Yeah.
just in general, they're on top of things.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ones, too, I think it's good to maybe we'll dive into this one characteristic, but they are in what's called the Anger Triad. Okay. And so each one of these numbers exists with two others in a triad. And there's lots of different relationships, but I think this is helpful that ones they're in the Anger Triad in a way that when they experience anger, it's usually always directed at themselves. And so even if you screw up, I'm going to get mad at myself for not having led you in a way that would have helped you succeed.
Do you think, though, that many times they project outwardly what they're feeling inwardly, but then it may not verbalize why?
If a one yells at you, I think
that sounded like a work situation. It
think
just came to light.
Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? But if a one is mad at you, they can be some of the most sharp critics. But I would venture to say 99.9% of the time they are more mad at themselves than they are at you.
Right.
They'll take the blame.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I
Yep.
missed. I dropped the ball. It's like you didn't have
All the
anything to do
anger
with
is
it.
directed at them. But I mean, just such great people.
Well, no,
They
but,
are great
But just to push back on that, here's why I asked that is because I think sometimes maybe a one may not verbalize that, and so you actually think they're frustrated at you. They may just be frustrated themselves.
Yes.
Is that-
I can
Yes.
say because I think it's
Yeah.
that inner critic that they're constantly fighting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
But they say this might be a fun trick to try. You'll know if you're a one if you pass or fail the dishwasher test.
See, that's what
guys
doesn't
heard
make
of the dishwasher
sense
test?
because I would pass the dishwasher test as a one.
But
My wife
listen,
does not.
But
What's
here's
the
deal.
dishwasher test?
No,
Here's
no,
the
no.
good-
My wife
here's the
does not,
dishwasher
and it drives
test.
me crazy.
Yes.
And then I go back and I reassemble the silverware and everything
So here's the
because she just
dishwasher
puts
test.
it in with stuff all on it.
Listen, if you think you might be married to a one, you might be living with a one, just throw all your dishes into the dishwasher.
The wrong way.
Just pile them up in there and see if your spouse or your roommate or whatever
Fix it.
fixes it.
What does this say about
but here's
me
the
then?
thing.
They might be a
But here's
one.
the thing. I fix it.
Well, you might be
I
a
do.
one.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you might
No,
be a
I'm
one.
not.
I think
Trust
that
me.
This
I
is
do
gonna
not have.
be really helpful for you
No,
as you figure out your
I
actual
just
type.
I fix it all the time. Like and I stopped saying anything about it because she just says fine. Well, then you just do it. Oh, but I go in and the silverware is all jammed into one section instead of spread out. You know, it has little baskets where you can do each individual one. So it's that. And then our dishwasher to me isn't the greatest, so I go back and wash everything a little bit first, just rinse it off.
I think
because
that's
she just-
OCD.
That's what and she puts up. No, here's the
You
reason
lost
why.
me at dishwasher.
Let me tell you why. Here's why I do it. Here's why I do it. It's not OCD. The reason why I do it is because a lot of times I unload the dishwasher, and so when I unload the dishwasher and half of the stuff is not clean, so it wasn't successful.
We
So
need
I had
get
to go
in-
back and fix
we'll
it
talk
so it'd
more
be
about this
successful.
when we
Let's
get
move
into
on.
the
Type
three.
2.
We'll talk about
Type
that more.
2.
Just a quick shout out to my dad too, who's watching. Hey, Dad.
What's up, Steve?
The man.
He's the man. I
We'll get
love
into your number
dad.
here soon,
Your
Dad.
dad is awesome.
And he's-
By the way, he's general manager at Buckeye Nissan. If you need a car, you need to see Steve Illich. Buckeye Nissan, I'm telling you, we
There
are
we go.
so thrilled to death with them. Buckeye Nissan, they're the greatest.
So thank you to our sponsors.
They're very sponsor. Yeah, if you guys
If
want to
you wanna
sponsor,
be
that'd be great.
featured on this
I'm
show.
literally, like,
Shoot an email.
we
in.
own Nissans, and we have, and we love.
We
Buckeye.
do have a
You know, the
price.
very first car that my wife and I ever bought together was from Buckeye Nissan, where he was the general manager. This was 22 years ago, before we ever knew you. I think
22
before
years
you were
ago.
born. And he was the general manager at the time. I had no idea.
That's crazy.
And I'm
Small
back.
world.
So, anyways, move on.
We'll
Type
get to
2.
his number in a second. But nice. Thanks for the plug. The next number 2, the helper, the befriender. Russ, have you ever seen a 2?
Okay. I don't know if you know this, that's why you asked this, but I have a lot of 2s in my life. So 2s, super warm, super caring, bleeding hearts. And I have a lot of 2s. I work with 2s. My mom is a 2. This is maybe something to psychoanalyze later, but I have often dated, therefore, 2s. And I know, not to get too personal. And 2s are amazing.
Yeah.
2s are really, really amazing. And if you want the helper, right? And incredible at stepping into whatever situation they need to or perceive they need to,
Yeah.
to support.
Yeah, twos have a gift for, I think, identifying the need and a
Yeah.
compulsion to meet it. So, like you said, they're called the helper. They're called the befriender. I think that's a cool term because have you ever met those people who are just friends with everybody? It's like if you go out to eat, they know 5 people there. Twos know everybody,
Yeah.
Right.
and you want them in your corner, and,
Right.
and you need them in your life. They make
They're very
great
approachable.
helpers, great friends, very
Relational.
approachable, very caring, warm, giving. Their motivation, I wrote it this way: they have a need to be needed, and to avoid acknowledging their own need. And so sometimes twos are overgivers, and that they give, meet needs, that they will become unfamiliar, maybe even not intentionally, with their own needs as a person.
Yeah.
I was having dinner with a couple on Friday, and they had just taken the test, and so she was just coming to terms with part of the resentment issues that she deals with. And you can tell me, I think this is typical for
Yeah.
a 2, is a 2 genuinely helps because they want to help. They desire to help. They don't do it for any other reason. However, if enough time goes by that is taken for granted,
Yeah.
and then not helped in return,
reciprocated.
there can be, in an unhealthy moment, a resentment that forms
absolutely.
that comes back. And so, this is actually, I'll just own some of my weaknesses. I realize this is part where I think I have, at times, the unhealthy side of a wing 2.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I have felt, I'm like, oh, as she said, I'm like that at times. Like, I love to help people. I love to pour into people. I love to do that, and I don't feel like I do it for any other reason. But if there's a betrayal deep enough or a taking for granted deep enough, if I don't watch it, I can come back and be like, but I did this,
Yep.
I did that, and
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I love twos. I think that just to give people a visual, you think about that person who always is bringing a casserole, to somebody in need. You think about, I was talking to Pastor Rick, one of our twos that works here, and when they're at the grocery store, they're thinking about what they need to buy for other people. Oh,
I can't even fathom that.
I might.
I
As
don't
well
have very
buy-
much two-wing in me,
I
I
might
found
as
out.
well buy 10 more gift cards because I don't know when I might need them.
I don't think I have
They're
very much
buying
two-wing
other
in me.
That is
people's
so
coffees.
true.
They're
That is
buying
so
for
true.
the
You do?
for the person
no,
behind.
I'm
the
not like that.
line.
Okay.
But the twos
Twos
I
are
know
the- yeah.
are absolutely like that.
It's almost unanimous when you talk to a two. It's like when you go grocery shopping, do you buy things for other people?
Yeah.
When they don't even need it yet. They're
And
like,
do they
oh,
ma-
yeah, just in case.
and do they make you
See,
feel
my
like a-
wife will do that. That's why I wonder, okay, are you a one-wing
Yeah.
too? But maybe she, I don't know.
We should have her on. That'd be fun.
So I have godkids.
Yeah.
And that family, the wife is a 2. And they'll call sometimes, and she'll be weeping over a stranger she just met or over a puppy that she found out wasn't going to be adopted. And I'm on the other line. And even though I do feel like I have compassion, I'm thinking, I'm a jerk because I'm trying to make myself care as deeply about someone that I have never met. Have you experienced that? Like, I feel like
No.
twos are immediately able to.
Twos are great. They're great empathizers. They're actually, if we're going to continue to talk, as a 1 is in an anger triad, a 2 is in a heart triad, and so that's
the best triad.
Yep, an emotional triad, and so they. The predominant feeling that they have is in their heart and in their emotions. And am I saying that right? Is it
Yeah,
emotional triad,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Because you
No,
guys
they
are in the
do.
same triad as a
Yeah,
3.
yeah.
But basically, they are so in tune with other people's emotions and with their feelings.
Yeah, it's good.
It's very interesting. So 3s, I'm going to run through these because if I let you guys talk, we'll talk about it.
No,
for the next
I
hour.
said we need to keep going.
So 3s, I'll give you just the academic version of what a 3 is. Hopefully this resonates with you at home. 3s, the achiever or the performer as they're called. You guys are both 3s. We have a lot of 3s that work here. A lot of 3s are just in charge of things because they're just very success oriented. They're very driven and image conscious. And that's not just a bad thing. I think that's as far as when you look a lot at what we do here as a church. A lot of the excellence has to do with the fact that you have that image in mind, that you don't want it to be a distraction.
I care how people see our church.
Yes.
I just care how someone for the first time shows up, that there's not trash,
Yep.
that there's not this,
Yeah.
that
Yep.
it looks well put together,
And
that
you'll
it's
say this
distraction
often,
free.
and that if we try to share the most excellent message that there ever was, that we want to have an excellent presentation,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's what it deserves, and that's
Yeah.
what it is. So don't just think about image conscious as something that's a negative, because
Right.
it's not. Motivations for 3s: they're driven to succeed or to be successful, to avoid failure at all costs. Decision makers, they're kind of pragmatists, or care a lot about efficiency. And
That's my
they're-
love language.
Right. They think a lot about
I say
pros
it all
and
the time.
cons. Very efficient. Some of the most efficient people I know are
Amen.
3s.
Preach it.
So-
We can move on. We talk a lot about threes.
We
so.
do, and we probably will for the rest of our lives. So.
Yeah, we should.
Fours. They say that fours are the there's less fours than any other number on the Enneagram in the world, which is fascinating.
They're so unique.
And they love it.
Oh, they
wouldn't have
love
it any
being
other
unique,
way.
don't they?
I
The
have
romantics.
great relationships with fours in my life. They're called the individualist,
Yeah.
the romantic. They're also in that feeling triad, and they
Boy, they feel though.
they have a great relationship.
Is it
with
me?
their
But
feelings.
does it seem like that the twos and the fours of the heart triad feel a whole lot more than the threes, or is it just me?
Yeah, so as the
Maybe it's just
I should have said
me.
that. So the three,
Doesn't-
You're born without a feeling.
Okay, so I do feel, but maybe it's just me then. Okay,
you'll
move on.
feel this year
Never mind.
next year.
Move
But
on.
it takes you a while. It takes you a while.
That's
It's
'cause
it's
I'll already be in the next
2025.
year.
It's 2025, and it's like,
Hey,
2020
do you
was
agree
such a
with
hard year.
Ian
I'm
for the
working
good
on
and
it.
the bad that America's number is 3?
Yes, I mean, when you think about
Progress.
the American dream,
We're all
you
about
think
progress.
about the stereotypical person. It's that
America's
three
three.
successfully. I
Progress.
told you we weren't going to talk about threes.
Move on.
And here we are.
4.
But I
Individuals.
think it is helpful what you brought up as far as the feeling triad, the heart triad. You've got threes who are known for their dissociation.
That's
with
what I
their
mean.
feelings.
We
And
dissociate with feelings.
So threes,
Fours
for the
do
most
not.
part, okay, and this is a low resolution picture, but for threes, you'll find them very distant from their emotions. Not ignoring them, just distant. It's hard. A lot of times
Because they
people-
get in the way
a great gift
of
you
what
could
you're
buy
trying to
for
accomplish.
A great gift you could buy for a 3 is one of those feeling balls. And so that's literally this little ball that it has all of the different feelings on it. And so you have to find the feeling. It's
Like a mood ring?
Yeah, it's like pick which feeling you're feeling right now. Anyway,
waste.
You
those
still
are
have a mood
threes.
ring?
Fours live in their emotions, man.
they're moody.
They can be moody. They're very sensitive. A lot of
harsh.
He is harsh. Fours are known for their creativity.
They are.
So some of the most creative people. that
I
you
dive
know
into
are
a 4
fours.
wing, so I understand.
A lot of our people on a creative team, I think, can resonate with that 4. People who are the romantics, the nostalgic people that we know. Like I said, very emotional. Their motivation is. Can we take the camera off of him? He's gonna get us in trouble.
I just looked over.
Their,
You
their
and
motivation is their need to be special and unique, and they use a lot of intuition to make decisions. They go by their feelings.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 4s a little bit. Not you, but
What?
Pastor Russ. Let's talk about a 4.
So the reason he's looking at me is because he's convinced I have a wing 4, which there are
Strong
parts of
4 wing.
4. So, but again, this is where it gets complex, and this is another reason we say it's great to read the book and to do this in community, because I'm higher in 7 and 8 than I believe I am in my wings. But if I were a wing,
Yeah.
between 2 and 4, it would probably most likely be 4, because I do love to dive into the creative process of writing and ideation and creativity, and I
Aesthetics.
am an aesthetic.
Smells.
And it smells.
Textures.
It matters. Environment.
No,
This is another
environment.
person I think, but
Yeah.
was it the hypersensitive? Like you're very. This is not an Enneagram thing, but you're hypersensitive to environments.
Yeah.
Like I won't go in Audi because the environment
Yeah,
depresses
so
me.
4s are most in tune with what's missing.
Some people don't have to go.
What's missing? What's missing inside themselves?
Yeah.
There's always a longing inside of a 4 for what's missing in their makeup,
Yeah.
and also what's missing in their space.
Is that resonating with or connected to the nostalgia piece?
Yeah, I
because
think
I'm
that-
hyper nostalgic and
Yeah.
sentimental.
But part of us, if
too.
we want to get super spiritual just for a second, part of us, we're all longing for a perfect world, right?
to
And
you.
so
Oh.
4s, that's just right at the surface.
Very good.
There
Yeah.
we go. Segue into 5s. 5s, they're called the investigator, the observer. I thought that you were a 5.
I'm very
at first.
analytical, so I could see it.
Yeah, so 5s, we worked with some 5s here, and they, I feel like, are the number who is the most self-sustaining. Does that make sense? They don't need anybody.
Yeah.
That they want to create a world in which that they are so secure, don't have any sort of needs from other people. I don't know if I'm describing it in a great way, but you guys want to chime in on 5s?
Yeah, very analytical, very self-sustaining. Tend to be introverted.
Yeah.
And are very loyal.
Yeah.
very, very loyal,
Very private.
very private.
All of
And-
those things were what made it hard for me to identify.
And just to get practical, again, this is one of the reasons this is so helpful, because one of the people I work with, I'll just say Jesse McCoy,
Yeah.
if he's watching, Jesse
Man, yeah.
is just incredible. He's one of the best leaders I've ever met. But for me as a 3, who a 3's desires to be admired, I would tend to think, oh, praise somebody in public.
Yeah.
And then, but learning who people are, like I learned with Jesse, being able to give him specific, like, because he just does an incredible job at everything he does. But he doesn't need what maybe it's a 3 would need.
It means
Right.
nothing to him.
Yeah, it means
Yeah.
nothing to him. But specific, like, actual quality time
Right,
to say,
yeah.
here's where you've scored, means a whole lot more than it would for a
interesting.
7 or a 3 to.
5s probably make great accountants, actuaries,
IT.
IT. I mean, there's so many things I identify with a 5. Analytical, detached, from their emotions.
Yeah, so they
But not on purpose. It's just
a lot of things. You might know if you're a 5, it might be helpful. 5s love to read. They're always reading.
I don't love to read, but
Yeah.
no, I do. I read. I'm reading.
love to learn.
I love to learn.
They say Bill Gates was a 5.
I love to learn. So that part of me drives me to read. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know if this is a 5 thing or a 3 thing. I'm like currently, I will do 4, 5, 6 things at once.
Yeah.
I have 2 physical books I'm reading. I have an Audible I'm listening to, and then I have 3 or 4 podcasts that I listen to on a weekly
I think
basis.
you're a 5.
And I rotate.
Listen, here's
So,
another thing that might help you if you. If
5s would never embrace what
Have you
I
ever
do.
talked to somebody
stage.
and you don't get? Listen,
I don't know if that's true.
back to 5s. Have you
Okay.
ever talked to anybody where you feel like they're giving you like the I'm just gonna say F off, go away vibes on their face?
No.
Where you're like you haven't,
That is very much a 5 thing.
Yeah, and
that is.
5s feel no need to reciprocate any sort of visual satisfaction with what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, there's just nothing in them that feels like they need to give that to you.
That's so true.
So you might be a 5 if you're
you have
stone
RBF?
facing- Yeah, if you have RBF.
That's so true. The first time I met the parents of my godkids, the husband I thought hated me.
Yeah.
Hated me. I walked away from my first encounter. I was like, he hates me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, these are the most incredible people.
They just need
Interesting.
time and space to process. I think another thing about 5s might be helpful. You might be a 5 if you have like a place in your house that is yours, a place that you go to. Maybe you read there. You will find 5s often in their perch, in their room, in their sanctuary where everything's theirs. And that's 5s also. They hoard knowledge and information, and so 5s at any given time are researching all of these different things that are interesting to them. And so they're not going to present that to you. They're not going to present that to you.
There's a lot of attributes that I identify
Right.
with a 5, but I don't think I am.
They're not
I
going to
got
present
motivation.
that to you. But if you ask them, you say, hey, what are some things you're learning about right now? Like I ask this question often with Pastor Jesse. It's like, what are some things you're learning about right now? And I'm playing this farming game, and all I'm doing, just always learning about different things.
Yeah.
5s are fascinating. Let's move on
Yeah.
to the 6, the loyalist, as they call it, the skeptic. Now, whereas 4s are the least represented number in the population, they say 6s
Most.
are the most represented numbers. So do you guys
So
know any
interesting.
6s and anything about them?
6s, loyalists. I actually thought
I always thought it was
we thought my
fascinating.
daughter Lauren was a 6 for a long time. She did. She ended up really, I think, identifying as a 9. But it's weird because I think 9s can go to 6 when they're stressed.
Yep.
And so she was always stressed, and so it was coming out in some of them. 6s tend to be when you think about a 6, they're practical. They're very committed. That's the loyal part. They're super committed to people. A lot of times it's interesting though. They're a worst case scenario thinkers.
Yeah.
So I would see that sometimes in my daughter when she's stressed. Oh, this is going to fall apart. This is not going to work. You know what I mean? And they kind of go to that. But I think we ended up finding she was like, I never identified with the motivation though of a 6. She found out she kind of goes there. They have a need for security. So they're not going to be risk takers.
Yep.
Probably naturally. Safety, and they tend to be, I think, motivated by fear.
Yeah.
So not like it's like
Right.
fear drives, I think, a lot of what 6s do. And so if it is like, I would not, if you're a 6, you're probably naturally not a risk taker.
Yeah.
You're probably
But
not
great-
somebody who's,
But great at assessing risk.
great at, you need 6s around you, especially if you're a 7.
Yep.
You know, I think even 8s and 3s, I mean, tend to fall a lot of times in leadership
Very
roles and business oriented.
optimistic.
Optimistic. We need 6s who can come around and go, yeah, but have you thought about this and
Right.
this? Because if you don't do this, then the whole thing's going to blow up.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think 6s are good to have around.
No, no, I agree. That's what I was going to ask if there's ever any tension, because I do feel like maybe it's too stereotypical to say this, but I do feel like 3s and 7s are hopelessly optimistic. Maybe 7s even more than 3s, and so with 6s, I could see them getting a bad rap for being pessimistic.
Yeah.
Whereas you need those people.
Yep.
That's the whole beauty of humanity. You need all these numbers.
Yeah.
It's good.
You know, I was talking to my dad. Shout out to my dad again, who's a 6. We were talking yesterday.
He's
after-
general manager for
Yeah.
Buckeye Nissan.
Yeah,
In case
there
you
we
need a
go.
Nissan, make sure you. I'm just kidding.
By the way,
Terry
Like I'm
Road,
plugging
yeah.
it out. We're not getting anything back. Can we get a car? We'll
Listen.
plug this.
Yeah, ex-church car. I'll drive it. I, but my
Such an 8 thing.
right, 6s. You know, like you said, I think they can get a bad rap. They're the ones in a meeting that maybe they sometimes seem like a Debbie Downer. You have this really entrepreneurial, exciting idea that's going to blow things up. And the 6s at the table are going to tell you the 4 reasons why that's not going to work. Or I hope you're thinking about these 5 things.
Right.
6s are, when you think about worst case scenario thinkers, I've heard it said one time that 6s suffer from pre-traumatic stress disorder.
Not post.
And that they will
pre.
feel all the stress and the trauma before anything bad happens. So they're constantly preparing for what could go wrong. Yeah. And it's not... I
Use
think
them
that-
to forecast.
What's
Right?
that?
Use them to forecast.
Yeah, I think that sometimes I think the stereotype, not the type for a 6, is that, oh my gosh, they're so anxious all the time. But their anxiety comes before something bad would happen. So 6s are walking down the street, and they're the ones that are thinking, oh, well, a car is pretty likely to come off and hit me on the sidewalk, and what would I do in case I heard the squealing of the tires, and where would I need to throw my kids? These things like defensive driving, like all of these attributes that a 6 is constantly thinking about what could go wrong and what would I do in that situation. But at the same time, when those things do happen, when the tragedies do happen, there is no one calmer than a 6.
They saw it
Because
coming.
The 6 they saw it coming. They know exactly what they
to
would
do.
do in that
Yeah.
situation.
Wow.
It's good.
You know, I heard a story told one time of a 6.
So they're a
who-
bomb diffuser.
Yes, exactly. Of a 6, though, that had this weird fear that what would I do if my roof fell into my house, just randomly? And one day, their roof caved in their house. And she was just completely fine about it. She's like, yeah, I just kind of prepared for this.
Strange.
So, very interesting, but the loyalists, the people that you want to have in your corner. So
We got 3 types left. We need to go.
We need to go. We need to move. We need to book it. 7's the enthusiast, the adventurer. They're fun, spontaneous, outgoing, entrepreneurial, big idea people, but don't do very well at executing things. Might have big ideas and might have a lot of energy at the start of something, but as it gets more serious and as you get into more managing type roles, they don't really succeed. But great starters, great entrepreneurs. They have a motivation, a need to avoid pain, and to plan stimulating experiences, and they dream of unlimited possibilities. I have a sister-in-law who's a 7,
Anna.
and
They're spontaneous.
very spontaneous,
Very spontaneous people.
and she probably just a couple months ago fell in love with skydiving, and
Yeah.
so now she drives 2 or 3 hours 4 or 5 times a week to skydive as much as she can to get some certification.
Yeah.
Very 7. What about the 7s you guys know?
Well, first off, this is again one of the numbers that caused me to have an Enneagram identity crisis
Yeah.
because
I thought it was a 7 for a little bit.
I
Very
mean,
brief.
so Steve Rao, who's on our staff, we joke that he's the mayor of Lancaster, doesn't go anywhere without knowing anybody. And my friends in some of the states I used to live in always said that about me. I dated a girl one time that would not let me go into the grocery store. She's like, you'll never come out because you don't meet a stranger. So that extroverted, hopeless optimist, I love what you said, dreams about
Yep.
unlimited possibilities. Like all of that is a resonating factor for me. But yes, 7s are the life of the party. Usually, they're 7s.
Fun to be around.
So much.
You want
fun.
7s on your
They'll
team.
loosen you up.
Yeah.
They'll go on a road trip
Yeah.
at the drop of a hat. Incredible people.
Yeah, I thought for a brief moment I was a 7 based on the descriptors because of the things you just described. So I think there's an overlap between 7s and 3s because
Yeah.
3s tend to be very vision oriented. They're very much about building, accomplishing, and they see things. So that part resonated. But that's where I got confused. But I was like, I am not spontaneous.
Yeah.
I want to have it planned out. I like routine. So I was really struggling for a while there because of some of that crossover. But I found out I really feel like I'm not a 7 in so many different ways. But I like that. I think 7s are fun to be around.
Oh.
That's the thing about a
Yeah.
7 is get them on your team.
But to not stereotype. Here's what's interesting. That podcast we're listening to is Bill Gates is a 5, but they say that Steve Jobs is probably a 7
Yeah.
because of his adventures and his travels.
And entrepreneurs, it start stuff. You just, if you're going to be a 7 and you have all these great ideas, you need to put people around you. This is where self-awareness matters.
Yeah.
You need to put people around you to help build it. So whereas that's where I started to disconnect from it and go, no, I'm the one that built the system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'll build the steps to get
Yeah.
there. Whereas
Yeah.
a 7, I don't think has any idea how.
Yeah, I think
they're
they
a
give
one.
up.
They're like, here's step 1.
7s are
And
great
that's it.
entrepreneurs, great
Yeah.
visionaries, poor managers. Whereas the 3 would be a great manager.
Yeah.
So 7s, find you some 3s or some 1s and let them manage your crap.
It's good.
That's great. 7s, I think, are known for being happy all the time.
Yeah.
But I think that there's also this unconscious need to avoid pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you often talk long enough to a 7, they're like the little kid that you're trying to tie down to feed them their medicine.
Yeah.
That sometimes in life we need to experience pain,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it deepens us.
Right.
And 7s will avoid that at all costs, making
Right.
light of everything, always just running from experience to experience, as long as we'll avoid what might make me feel some negative emotion.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
so often, if you talk long enough to a 7, and how are you doing? Oh, great. I did this thing, that thing. How are you really doing? And just that one question, you'll get to a really deep place
Yeah.
of a lot of emotion that I think a lot of people don't like to feel, but it's healthy. So
Yeah.
7s
Good.
are great. The 8, that's my number. So there is no number that's greater than any other number on the Enneagram, but if there was, it'd be the 8. Why don't you guys describe me, please, to everybody?
Well, Kevin, he's a great guy to be around.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time now, so we actually
let's
are
go.
out
We
of
got
time.
2
So we're just
numbers.
gonna have to skip
No,
the last
2
2 numbers.
numbers. Yeah,
And I
tell me
we're
about
going to get to so much more than this. You're
is
taking
great.
way too long.
We need a part
Challengers.
2.
So yeah,
We keep
8s.
talking about 3s.
8s are challengers. 8s are annoying. 8s are no, they're not. 8s are great. Actually, I will say this: I am very grateful to have you around on the team. 8s are just they're intense. They take command. So a lot of times they end up being in executive roles. They end up leading organizations. They end up doing that because of just their personalities to kind of take control of something. They want to be in control of something. Sometimes they can be domineering. I think when you get to the unhealthy side, it really comes out, and then you'll know when you come across an 8 that is unhealthy, and you'll be like, oh, they're the worst number in all of them when they're unhealthy. When they're healthy, they can get stuff done. And I think one of the great parts, I think we've talked about the motivation of an 8 before as well. They need to exert strength and control over others and environment to kind of, this is the part, mask tender vulnerabilities and things like that. So one of the things I appreciate about having you as an 8 around is I will you'll question everything. If it does not feel like there's enough facts and other things. See, that's what's weird. In decision-making process, you're going to have ones, you have others that are going to probably go, my gut says this. Yeah. Well, an 8's going to fight back against your gut. Yeah. They're going to say, no, wait a minute. What are the facts that really say that this is the best decision to make? Devil's advocate. They love to play it. And so I think that's great. I think they can. I just think the separation between a healthy 8 can be one of the most productive people on your team. They can be, you want them. I think they also are really quick. Here's one of the things that I have come to learn and love about you, Kevin, on the team.
I love how ginger.
You want to hear this?
Approaching.
No. One of the things I've come to learn and love about you is that
One of the greatest areas for growth of opportunity is
that I have found that I can trust your gut. Probably, you know what I mean? Like your gut response to something a lot of times may end up being the right answer. It might take me, I want to process through the facts to get to it because there was an idea that was like this. And, okay, yeah, you might be right about how we have to do it. So I think 8s, a lot of times, they kind of just, they either have a sense they know in the gut. Intuition. And a lot of times, I'd say more often than not, it's right. it's just, I think what I was saying, there's a huge separation, healthy 8s and unhealthy 8s. I just think unhealthy 8s are probably the worst number. When they're
More the
unhealthy
time to
because
shop,
they're,
yeah.
because they're domineering, because of that, they can leave a trail of wake behind them.
Yeah.
And so that's
true.
But
I'd say
I
you're
think they're
spot on.
great. I have a good friend of mine, a pastor in Lancaster, Matthew Johnson. He's an 8. Very different 8 than any of the other 8s that I know, but he's an 8, probably because of our relationship and it's different in different environments, the way it comes out. But like most of the people on his executive team are 8s. So he loves 8s. You know what I mean? So, and it's hard not to surround yourself with everybody that's got a type like you.
Right.
I think it's hard.
Well, I know for time's sake, we probably need to we'll circle back in part 2. But no, I think what you said is right on, because it is in the gut triad. Right. So it's a very guttural.
8, 9, 1.
The intensity of emotion comes from a deep, authentic place. I feel like 8s are very genuine. And very authentic. And I agree with you. I think, a great bow on it for now is that a healthy 8 can be one of the most productive and an unhealthy one of the most destructive.
Yeah, it is.
It's a polarizing
said
number,
it well.
I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd say you guys are spot on. I care a lot about, just speaking from my perspective, I care a lot about authenticity. I will be behind you, very loyal. But I expect it in return too. And that one of the, I'm not saying this is healthy, but if you cross me, I'm black and white. I will kill a relationship if you cross me. And I care so much about loyalty. And if I open up to you, and if I am authentic with you, and if we've gained that trust, then I would hope that I can trust you with it. But very black and white thinker, very gut, big idea. I don't have any limits in my head. Like I literally think I can do anything. And that costs me in my life a lot. And that's I think how you grow is you find your limits and you go, oh my gosh, I crossed that is my line, and I have destroyed all of this around me. Oh my gosh, I need to change. So that's good. A 9. Moving on, the Peacemaker. If they say that 8s have the most energy of any number in the Enneagram, and if that's true, that the 9 has the least energy.
That's why.
They say that 9s start their day slow and
My wife
taper
isn't.
off throughout the course of the day.
Not a morning person.
But my wife is a 9. 9s are the sweetheart of the Enneagram. There is nobody sweeter in the world than the 9s. Like I said, they're the peacemaker. They're the mediator. They're the person you want to be the glue and just have a sweet presence about them. I can probably speak to all this because, like I said, my wife is a 9. If you're watching, babe, I love you.
My wife's a 9.
They're very pleasant, very laid back, very accommodating. Keeping the peace in life with all the people that mean a lot to them is very important. Peace is what they're striving for. And when they can't get it in their environment, 9s often, you might find a 9 by themselves in a room, staring into the corner of the room, completely removed from life. 9s can access what they call in this language, in the Enneagram language, their inner sanctum. And so that's where their peace exists if they can't get it in their external. So very interesting. 9s, sometimes they have a hard time identifying, I think, their own wants and needs and desires because they are very in tune and understand every other number's desires and wants. They say they're at the top of the Enneagram, and so they can see every single, and they look at a 3 and go, yeah, I get it. I understand. They're the only number I feel like that can completely agree with you, or you feel like they've completely agreed with you, but they actually have completely different feelings.
Oh, yeah.
That is, yes.
You'll think they agreed with you.
It's like they're saying with their head, yes, I totally see where you're coming from, but they might not agree. So very interesting. Like I said, we run a little long today, but the Enneagram's been such a helpful tool
It is.
in our life and our language. And I just love, PT, if you could maybe just wrap this up and tell us why it's important, how this can help us in things like our marriage. How's it helped you in your marriage and your relationship with your kids as a leader, everything?
Yeah, I think there are so much other than the types that we could get into in our own relationships. I feel like that the self-awareness, that's, I think, the first place to start. So I think if you want to, get the book, you want to take a test, the paid tests usually work better than the free ones. But I think self-awareness is really big. So you learn about your motivations. You learn about when you're healthy and when you're unhealthy. I think that's the first place to start. But I also think that where it's been really helpful in our environment here in ministry at home, like my youngest daughter, Audrey, she's an 8. My wife, all those things you described, she's all those things to a T. She's a 9. I really think she's a 9 wing 1. And so like figuring that, and my oldest daughter's a 9. And so like interpersonal relationships is, I believe, one of the greatest keys to being successful in life and in business and in work. Learn how to relate to the people on your team. Learn how to relate to people like that, and you'll go a lot further in life. It's about relationships. I think that's what goes back to God made us all so unique and so different, but learning to interact with one another, I think, is so important. And so to me, I think you start with yourself. Okay, then you learn. So in relationships, I've learned, this took me a lot of years to understand this, that like my wife, like if I'm saying something and it will be a little bit of an argument, she will just shut down and stop. Mm-hmm. So you can go, so to me it'd be like, well, you don't care? Just, no. As a 9, it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. I'll let you be right.
Yep.
It's not worth the conflict. Mm-hmm. That's the way a 9 would think. So as I learn and grow in that, I understand, like, if she's shutting down, it's like, okay, I'm a 3, so I'll fight to win.
Yep.
Like, until the end, I'm going to prove I'm right. Even if I'm wrong, I'm going to prove that I'm right. So I just think learning that, I think as a parent, learning your kids' numbers, this is so weird, strange, but like, I think a great example is like if your kid's a 7 and you learn that you're going to, what is going to make them excited? If you want to do something fun with a 7, then it's going to be spontaneous. Hey, right after school, what do you say we go putt-putt?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so much fun, right? That's what a 7 is going to maybe love to do. And so learning those things and learning how they operate in the world, I think is so important. So I think self-discovery is huge. I think learning to be able to relate to one another, learn what in your own family, learn what makes when they're healthy and when they're unhealthy.
Yes. And
so they can and help them do it. It's fun. I just think it's fun too. Mm-hmm. I think it's fun. I want to be a better people person. I think that's one of the biggest things as a 3. One of the things, there's a phrase, it was either Myers-Briggs or one of them, I remember in a book that I read that was so true for me because I'm very analytical. I think about all the details. I'm going to make decisions more so removed from how is it going to make that person feel versus I think this is the right decision for all.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I would do. And so one of the best phrases I've ever heard that for like someone like me is a thinker. So as part of the Myers-Briggs, I'm a thinker. Is that I need to learn to think people.
Yes, that's good.
So I need to learn to think people, and so I just think that's what it helps me do. It helps me learn how to think people, see people. It's great.
Yeah, I just think as someone who's on your team and serves under you and with you guys, thank you for being open to growing. And not just thinking that everybody should think the way you think, but taking the time to look at yourself and go, how can I grow? How can I become more self-aware for the good of the group? And I think, too, in a time where things can get so dark, and maybe so many people who are listening to us right now have gone through a season where maybe for the first time ever you felt like this darkness over your life, and that you have such a lack of relationships with other people, that we need to learn to become friends with ourselves. Mm-hmm. That we need to learn that there's beauty in the way that God created you. And that so often we long to be other people, and we see the gifts and the strengths of somebody else, and we get jealous and we want that, and I'm not good enough, and we compare. There's this culture of comparison. Mm-hmm. But really, I think another great thing about the Enneagram, not just to be great, better spouses and better parents and better children and better coworkers and employees and subordinates, all that, I think that it's just as important that we learn how to love ourselves, and we learn that God has made us each in a unique way, and that there's beauty, and we can look in the mirror and go, wow, thank you, God, for what you put inside of me. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much. I love you both. And
fun.
Please like, review, rate this podcast. We can't wait for next week already. We'll see you.
Fun.
Love you guys.
Love you, man.